Padma, you don't need an introduction, but I'm just going to say it anyway, just for the people who have been living under a rock, I guess. Um, Please welcome author, actress, model, Emmy-nominated host, and executive producer of Bravo's Top Chef and Hulu's Taste the Nation, Padma Lakshmi. Thank you so much for being here. We've all been.
Thank you guys for having me. I think this is a great thing you're doing, by the way.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So I want to just jump right into it. I know that you have said that as an immigrant to the U.S., you struggled with self-confidence. You had to work to come to terms with your identity. You had to overcome, and I think this is a quote, a brown girl's self-loathing. I just wanted to ask you about that a little bit because I think there's so many young women, girls, and just kids who look up to you who might be dealing with similar things.
I mean, I think it's better now, but I still think we have a long way to go. You know, I was somebody who came here to this country when I was 4. And so most of my growing up has been here, but I did go back to India regularly. And so I did have a basic identity crisis that was always with me. So when I would go to India, you know, everybody would worry about me being too Americanized or not Indian enough. And then when I was here, even though I had an American accent very quickly, you know, because of my name and because of my skin color and because of the dot on my mom's head when I walked with her on the street, like I did feel not American enough. And that's also because all of the media that I was absorbing, billboards, magazines, television, TV, you know, now it's better because we have cable and we have all these streaming channels. So there's all kinds of content with all kinds of people in that content. But when I was growing up, literally we had 13 channels, actually 11, right? So there wasn't much to watch. And what there was always white, was always Caucasian. And, you know, America hasn't been just Caucasian for a very long time. And that's certainly not how I grew up. There were Filipino kids, there were Korean kids, there were, you know, Black kids, there were Filipino kids. There weren't any Indian kids. There were maybe like 2 or 3 Indian kids in a very big school. So I did feel like that. You know, I think women have it harder than men. Girls have it harder than boys because, you know, there's a lot of body issues around, you know, female adolescence in any country. But then, you know, add to that, in my case, I think, yes, I did wish I was fair-skinned. And I think some of that is not only because I grew up in this country, some of that is because of color prejudice in Indian culture as well. And so I was getting from both cultures the message that you're not light enough, you know. Yeah. And so it's always been something that I've had to grapple with. You know, even when I started being a model, I had to be really good at doing my own makeup because they just didn't have the products that matched my skin.
Wow. Yeah. I think that at some point, like culturally, and I don't think it was from my parents necessarily, but I do think you know, as a kid, I was someone in our community certainly was like, you've got to wear sunblock because you don't want to be too dark. And the idea was that, you know, like in India, being fair is valued, and in America, being more white is certainly valued. So I appreciate you talking about that honestly and openly because I feel like it's also something that we try to pretend doesn't happen. You know, like we're all cool with who we are, but in fact, it is a real struggle. Another thing that you've spoken vocally about is about being sexually assaulted as a child and being raped as a teenager, and essentially being taught that if you speak up, you'll be cast out. And I think so many kids who are bullied or on the receiving end of violence get that same message, sadly, that they should just put their head down and, you know, don't worry about it. And so I'm curious if you have any words of advice for young people, and also where you found your own courage to speak up.
It's really hard, okay? It's just a terrible thing that happens, and it usually happens at the most tender, vulnerable part of a person's life when they're young or when they're adolescents or preteens. It happened to me when I was a child by a relative, and it happened to me when I was 16 by someone I was dating. And, you know, the rape it took me a really long time to speak out about that. And it took me over 30 years to come to terms with that. And when I was writing the op-ed about it, I actually had to fact check it. And I had thought that I had told my mom somewhere along the way, even if I didn't tell her like right when it happened. And when I fact checked, she was shocked. Like I heard this really long silence on the phone. She said, "No, you never told me." And of course, that was probably because of the, direct and indirect messages I got all along from, starting from when I first told her about the sexual abuse when I was 7. I think for immigrant communities, and specifically Asian immigrant communities, there's this sense among our parents, certainly, that everything's okay. Don't complain, don't make waves, fit in, work twice as hard. And that, I think, also Indian culture is very reserved, especially South Indian Orthodox Hindu culture. And so I had from all angles these messages that just pretend it didn't happen. And you can't pretend it didn't happen because it does happen. And when something like that happens to you, it changes you. You're never the same, ever. You're never completely relaxed when you're in even a road you don't know, something like that. There's always this lingering air of anxiety or insecurity, like literally, I don't know how it manifests for different people, but literally like physically insecure, And I think the only piece of advice I have is that it's really hard to speak out. It's really hard to seek help. It takes an enormous amount of courage. I mean, I know that because it took me, like I said, over 30 years to talk about that rape. And I think I did it because I was so angry at what Trump was tweeting. So I guess I have to thank him, although I can't really believe I'm saying that. But I want to say directly to young people, it is a terrible thing when you are bullied for any reason, whether it's because of your gender, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your size, any way that presents itself sucks, and it sucks on toast. And it takes an enormous amount of courage, but courage is what you need to have. And you need to find the person you feel safest and most secure with, and you need to tell them. And if they don't do anything about it, you have to tell somebody else. And I know that's easier said than done. But, last night I was putting my 10-year-old daughter to bed, and she's been having a lot of problems with online schooling and some bullying, although now, of course, that's stopped because she's not in school. And I said to her, which I really believe, like the hardest things that have happened to me, whether it's been my car accident or my sexual abuse or even my divorce, like those things are what really gave me the most strength after I had been on the other side of them. So sometimes you just kind of have to talk to yourself and be like, okay, this is a lake of shit. And I'm going to have to I'm going to have to swim across to the other side. And in the process, it's going to be nothing but, shit. But you can only do what you can on that day. And you have to tell yourself, one day this will be over, but it is not today, and it may not be tomorrow or next week. And one day you will swim to the other side of the lake. And the part that is the hardest is when you're in the middle and you want to turn back and you want to pretend like it never happened and you want to withdraw your, complaint or your concern, but don't. And know that if you can't do it for yourself, you have to do it for the people who come after you.
Mm. My gosh, it was so beautiful. I do want to highlight 3 things that you talked about. You talked about the mental health thing, about this feeling that just comes up, that you can't just make it go away. I think that happens to so many people who are on the receiving end of bullying, and so mental health is a huge byproduct of bullying. We see increased suicide rates, increased depression, people dropping out of school. So thank you for talking about that. I also want to talk about this idea that culturally we are often taught to put our heads down and just do our work, and to not cause problems. And so thank you for sharing that, because in fact we do need to be vocal. And there was one other thing. And then courage. I really hope that for any young people who are watching today, that they know that if courage does not come easily, that a place like ACT to Change, and people like you, Padma, are here to help young people to find that courage, and that they are not alone. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I just want to close out with one positive thing.
Sure.
And Padma, you have used food as a way to bridge cultures, to bring people together, to celebrate your own culture, but also bring other people in. And I just want to ask you, where does your love for food come from? And what can we all do to be sharing food with one another and using that as a way to bring people together?
To me, food is, a great vehicle for understanding each other. Breaking bread with other people is a way to commune and get to know them. If you think about anything we do as a culture, as a society, whether it's a wedding, a funeral, a first date, power breakfast, a business lunch, it's all done over food. And you can really get to know a person if you get to know their food. And for most of us living in America, thankfully, there is a plethora of wonderful food from all different corners of the world here. And for most of us, the way we get to know our neighbors who are from a different ethnicity is through food first. We may not know many Germans, but we're eating bratwurst and beer. Or, we may not go to school with that many Thai kids, but we certainly know what pad Thai is, or whatever. So I think food is really good for that. It's what I try to do in my new show, which is called Taste the Nation. And it's all about immigrants. And it's sort of my answer to all of the terrible vilification of immigrants and the basic philosophy of immigration. Sorry. So there's so many bad things that are said, and I wanted to see who actually gets to call themselves American, and what does America look like today? And so we crisscross the country and we go into 10 different immigrant communities, and I think we need to share our stories more. I think food is so important to us, not just for survival, but because it comes with so much emotional memory and nostalgia. And so a lot of people will get most of their ties to culture through the food they eat, whether it's your grandmother's samosa or, your husband's grandmother's rugula, whatever that is. And so I'm really looking forward to everyone seeing the show. It's a labor of love. It's because I believe that the greatest thing about our country is actually our people, and our people are all immigrants. Unless you're Native American, everyone's an immigrant.
Thank you so much. Padma, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for supporting Act to Change. I'm so grateful for everything that you're doing and also for everything that you're saying for young people. I think the message you had today was one that we all needed to hear, so thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. And thanks for doing this, Malik.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.